personality traits, and he says that each stages has a given time period, and a child doesn't successfully, if he doesn't pass that stage, then he is said to be fixed in that stage. That is known as a fixation at a particular stage. Therefore, fixation at each stage is different. For example, if a grown-up person bites his nails, that is, he is said to be fixed at the childhood stage. So he says that there are certain stages in the human span and which are actually related with the sexual development of the individual. According to the Freud, there are 5 stages of development. The first stage is known as the oral stage, that is from 0 to say 1.5 years. Now here, this is the first stage where the infant tries to gratify itself by seeking the mouth as the erogenous zone. That is, he indulges in thumb sucking, biting, chewing, and dependency on the mother is seen here a lot. Now, why or do children actually keep their thumbs or other fingers in their mouth? This is according to Freud. He says gratification is there. And here we see that these persons also later in their lives, they have this oral passive personality that is characterized by smoking, thumb sucking, nail biting, binge eating, that is eating whenever one likes to eat throughout the time period. In these ways, the oral fixation is seen where the child or the infant is actually dependent on his satisfying the oral urges or the mouth urges. Oral means mouth. Here, the individual is trying to satisfy his mouth. He's either biting, chewing, or sucking, and these habits are always fixed. And that's why in even grown-up individuals, you see these fixation habits, fixed habits. Now, sometimes too much of gratification, too much of leading the child to allow this sort of behavior leads to oral aggressive personality, where we find the qualities of dominating, aggressiveness, biting, etc. So he says a child's traits actually are seen in the first stage where the child is trying to satisfy his oral gratification. It is called oral gratification, where he is happy to have his instincts or his impulses satisfied, and that is known as the oral gratification zone. And generally this is seen from the time of birth to the 1.5 years. Now we have got the stage 2 or the anal stage according to Freud, which actually works from 1.5 years to 3 years, where the parents train the children about the toilets and the bladder movements and their bowel movements, etc. Here, what we call the sort of eliminating waste from the body is the primary thing here. And here the children seek pleasure in eliminating the waste from the body through defecating, urinating, and therefore this anus, etc., these urinary bladder, they become the erogenous zones. Now this relationship with the parents and the kind of parenting, you know that the toilet training is very important in children. And this actually, the parents, how they behave during this toilet training or the parenting, it determines the fixation in this age. If parents are too harsh in the toilet training, it will result in a retentive personality where he does not speak out much. Characterized also by qualities such as obsession with tidiness and also toilet training and anal retentive personality, that is trying to hold the feces when it is excretion process, etc. Now, also we see that this is a particular type of personality. Now, sometimes extreme lenient parenting in toilet training, if it is the parents are very lenient and they say, okay, and here it is qualified by such or characterized by such qualities such as untidiness, messy, disorganized, wasteful, careful, reckless behavior, etc. So here Freud is saying that the erogenous zone has shifted to anus, and therefore how the parents actually train their children or how the children behave during toilet training. Some people readily take to toilet training, some people do not, and parents are lenient, it leads to one sort of behavior. And if the parents are very strict with them, it leads to stubbornness, anal retentivity, that is they do not go for toilet, etc. These sort of behaviors are also established early through the childhood is what Freud says. Now we have got the stage 3, according to Freud, also known as the phallic stage. And here, in this stage, children become aware of their genital organs or the sexual organs, either in males or in females. And of course, they are filled with their wonder and curiosity about their own bodies. Generally, this is the age, that is the 3 to 6 years age is the age where this phallic stage is seen. And here you see that they also are involved in playing their private parts, or also seek masturbation, or they try to pleasure, and they have this erogenous zone in the genital area. Now, Freud mentions that how the children deal with this is somewhat what he says. Several concepts about this phallic stage, and most of the cultural people of other countries or other cultures, they do not agree with this. They say they are controversial in nature. According to Freud, he says a boy child of this age actually develops a sort of sexual feelings for his mother, known as the Oedipus complex. Oedipus is a Greek personality character where he falls in love with his mother, or he loves his mother. And here he says this Oedipus complex is seen in male boys, where they try to have love or sexual feelings to their mother, and is angry with father because he is always with the mother. However, that he also fears, the child also may fear that the father, if he knows his feelings, might cut off his penis, which is dear to him. And this is known as castration anxiety. Sometimes we also see that the behaviors, values, and attitudes of the father are also identified with the child. On the other hand, the girls have sexual feelings towards their father, which is also known as the Oedipus complex. However, we have the neo-Freudians, or the persons who are the new psychologists who are proponating or talking about the Freudian theory. They have given another term for this, known as electrocomplex. Freud gave the term Oedipus, but these neo-Freudians have given the name electrocomplex for the girls who have sexual feelings towards their father. And all the girls also experience the feelings of inadequacy because they do not have a penis, which their father has. This is known as penis envy, and this compensates the feeling of not having a penis by having the feelings that they may have a baby. Now, the fixations and the thoughts in this age are revolved around their genital growth or genital organs, as well as the attraction towards the immediate parents, that is the father or mother. Now, these have been the controversial point in the Freud's theory, because most of the cultures did not agree with this viewpoint. Now, coming to the stage 4, latency stage, that is 6 years to puberty. Now, here the child tries to engage in the peer relations. Now he has established, he gets diverted with various activities of the society, and he tries to learn new places, new hobbies, and also acquires new skills, new social skills, and also children also engage in sex play here. Now, here the zone is not specifically mentioned, but all the other feelings which have been up till now get carried in this stage. Now, the latest stage from puberty onwards, that is when the adult stage starts somewhere around 11 or 12 years, the late stage is known as the genital age, which begins at puberty. Now here, the child starts forming mature sexual relationships, and after finishing his adolescent stage, he also gets successful or mature sexual relationships and marriage and child rearing. Now, fixation is also, the other stage is also seen here, but also here there are some sexual identity concerns, sexual perversions, and other sexual issues with which the individual faces certain issues. Now, what I mean to say here is he may think how a boy must behave, how a girl must behave, or what are the activities that one individual must involve in sexually. All these thoughts come up and continue after the stage. Now, coming to the evaluation of the psychosexual theory of development, Freud's concepts of the structure of personality and defense mechanisms, they have gained wide appreciation. I was talking about how having a defense, what we call mechanisms, which we learned last year about repression, regression, denial, sublimation, how a person actually tries to protect his personality from outside influences and tries to assert himself, and how he tries to have a personality which helps him to get along in the world. These sort of defense mechanisms have received much acclaimed. They were all acclaimed. They were what we call applauded. But then they have also gained prominence. But when it comes to the psychoanalytic approach, also became very popular. Whatever one say, Freud's theories helped us to understand an individual from a different perspective. There are also many studies taken later about the personality, and it also is the actually his theory is the one from which the other analytical theories or psychological counseling theories gave rise to several psychological theories. But then understanding counseling, etc., it also helped us to understand adult relationships and how actually adults behave and their personalities. But in spite of all these, there is certain criticism against Freud because of his unrepresentative sample, because he has not actually worked or provided proof, but then he had a lack of empirical evidence. He didn't actually experiment on individuals. He is also criticized for being a misogynist. That is, he had a feeling against women, he was prejudiced against women, and other theories about his stages and his characteristics. Developmental stages and characteristics were not appreciated because, that we cannot say according to this we can predict behavior. Sometimes there may be deviance. At the same time, it is not culturally felt appropriate for all the cultures to behave in a way. We know that cultures also have a way in development of individuals. And therefore, his theory was considered somewhat, his approach was considered narrow. But still, it has had an effect in actually trying to understand the developmental stages. And what he said to a certain extent about the erogenous zones or the growing or the puberty or have remained relevant. Now, there are other theories of development, for example, which tries to understand the different developmental stages with the individual development or maturation. And therefore, we have also got other theories like the psychosocial theory of Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson formulated his psychosocial theory in 1970s, which focused on the psyche, that is the individual's mind, as well as the social influencing factors, influencers. Now, we know that there is a mutual understanding or fit or mutual, what we call a relationship between the individual and the environment. And the individual capacity, how he actually develops, is dependent on the environment or the life space of other people, other institutions, other society, which also make him the ongoing continuous factors, the interactions actually lead to the individual development, and also their cultural background and cultural concerns are there. Now, we know that Erik Erikson is a post-Freudian, that is, he's after Freud, and he tried to develop the concept of ego and psychosexual stages of development developed by Freud. But his theory is also a life stage theory in which there are 8 stages, which starts from early childhood to infancy to the old age. Now, there is a sequential development in this step-by-step development, and the individual passes through them in a prescribed order and without skipping any stages. Now, this sequential development is derived from the epigenetic principle. That is, in embryology, that is how an individual grows from an egg to an individual. That is known as embryology. In that, there is an epigenetic principle in which we find that there is a gradual unfolding of the personality. Gradually, the individual develops. Now, each stage has an optimal time. In particular time period, an individual grows in this. And Erikson says every stage is continuous and one follows the other. Now, the individual has to successfully resolve and gain the psychosocial strength, which is a virtue. And he actually develops. Sometimes we find success and sometimes failure, which are result of, the failure is result of maladaptation of the individual to the environment, that he is not successfully adapted to the environment. Now, we also think that about the different stages of development, that is according how they actually get acclimatized to the society around them and how they form the social relationships. And each stage also has certain tasks or roles prescribed to them, and they have to be mastered by the individual during that time. Erikson talks about the concept of mutuality, that is, how one actually tries to behave in a social setting as in a matter of a contract. That is, one tries to give to others to something and gain something from them. That is a generational reciprocity. And he also talks about the influence of the parental interactions on the child. That is, the parents also in their upbringing has a role in the psychological as well as the physical development, and a way child lives also is affected by the lives of the parents. So out of the 8 stages, most of the stages talked about by Erickson is adolescent stages, and he thinks that changing from an individual as infant to an adolescent is an important part, and it continues as very salient in the individual's life, and it is the adolescent stage is how one is formed. It continues throughout the adult life too. Now, according to Erickson, the first stage is known as the infancy, birth to 1 year, the time of birth to 1 year, where there is a stage known as the trust versus mistrust. Either you gain trust on your parents or you must mistrust them. Here, the infant engages in the basic biological processes, and he tries to understand the world, make sense of the world through his sensory organs. Here, he uses all his 5 senses extremely. The infant wants warmth, the wants comfort and protection. And also, the infant tries to get satisfied his basic needs through help from others. The fundamental question that the infant asks is my world safe? Is my world predictable? Is it good enough for me? And here, the infant gains trust on its parents or the people again around him. And here, it develops a hope in them. Now, Erickson talks about the belief that one can attain one's deep wishes has come from this stage. Later, when we grow up, we feel that our hopes have to be satisfied. This sort of feelings develop early in the infancy stage. Now, what are the roles or what are the things that the individual does? What are the developmental tasks for this stage? We find here the individual forms social attachments, that is bonding with his parents. And also he tries to develop a sort of sensory perception. He tries to use his senses and find how rough something is, how smooth something is, what are the different colors and different motor functions, how to use his hands. All these are formed in this stage. Now, development of mistrust is because when he places some sort of trust in somebody or something and a negative experience occurs, now he says he'll go away. That is a hostile environment or lack of care or being shouted at or lack of stimulation or being abandoned or being left to his own self or herself. Now this will make them think the world is not a good place and they have to take care of themselves, and they have great difficulty in forming social relationships later in life. So here the trust versus mistrust, that is how even in pets you see, or in small animals, or also in small children, this is the infant stage is similar to the pet stage, where actually they try to trust you or not trust you. So the trusting and mistrust actually are formed as a consequence of positive or negative influence with their immediate parents and surroundings. If they find them reliable, if they find them warm enough, if they find them good enough through their what you call sensory perception that is occurring through their eyes, ears, how the parents behave with them, their touch, all these make a difference in the children's life, infant's life here. Stage 2 is the toddler stage. That is, here they go on moving a bit and the younger stages, and this occurs from the 1 to 3 years. Here we find autonomy versus shame or doubt. So what we find here is the individual tries to explore the world. If he appreciates it, he develops the individuality or autonomy. If he's shamed or if he's made doubtful, he will start doubting himself. Now the infant tries to control himself over the things, and he tries to manipulate things, and he tries to be independent so that his identity can be established. The role of the parents is to be encouraging to the infant. And this sort of behavior actually tries to make them self-reliant. So the autonomy is trying to be individualistic, and trying to do things on their own. And here, the virtue is well means determination of the exercise of free choice and self-control. And if the infants are not taught this, like throughout their life, they become dependent on their parental feelings. And if they are actually allowed, they'll feel their capability rising in them. And the toddler tries to actually see the behavior and imitate the behavior of his immediate, of the persons in his immediate neighborhood or his parents, and he tries to explore the world. Now, what are the tasks, developmental tasks is seen at this stage of 1 to 3 years? That is autonomy versus shame. He may actually try to move about. He may try to develop language. He may try to play, fantasy play, try to think he is a grown-up and try to behave. Some actual playground settings he may try to play. And also he may try to have self-control. All these are seen in these stages. If the toddler is given the freedom and independence to explore his surroundings and do the things the way he wishes, he develops a greater sense of autonomy. If he's shamed and ridiculed or is somewhat laughed at, and he doubt results in him, resulting in low self-esteem and self-doubt. Therefore, if you want the child to grow up individually, healthy, and independent, it is better that the child is given encouragement and appreciation for the small tasks he harbors or he does, like standing up, walking, showing, and he's shown if he does anything bad, then he's actually told the negative effects and tried to wean away from such circumstances instead of being shouted at or ridiculed. These sort of the behavioral patterns also have a way of forming a person's individuality. The stage third is from preschool age to early childhood, that is from 3 to 6 years. Now, this is the pre-primary stage school, and here we find initiative versus guilt. That is, the child tries to do something, takes initiative, and if the initiative is appreciated, again, he tries to develop new skills and new responsibilities. If not, if he is ridden with guilt feeling. Now, the child has a sense of ambition here. He's trying to get into the formal education stage, and he also tries to develop a sense of morality and an understanding of consequences of things he does, of actions. And if the child is able to accomplish his goals and develops the psychosocial strength of initiative, that is, he wants to do something and that initiative is appreciated. Now, it requires stimulation and motivation from parents and others, whereas there is a purpose in this. That is, he has the courage to imagine something, he can pursue valued goals later in life. For example, if he's not actually appreciative for things and he's reprimanded, there may develop the feelings of guilt that he has done something wrong. So, if the moral parenting, how you actually, sometimes he takes away things. You may scold him or you may be lenient. If a child takes away somebody's possessions or behaves roughly to others, he is uncivil or he is trying to show off some tantrums. If you do not tell him what is wrong with such a behavior, that in a gentle way, there is a possibility that the child may develop guilt. And the guilt may lead to different aspects. It may lead to roughness or aggressiveness, or it may lead to some sort of self-doubt. So here, how the parent actually deals with the child, how he develops, encourages if there is something creative. A child does something, it may be creative, it may be uncreative, but how the parents actually bring the foremost into them that his initiative or her initiative is good, or if it not, to gently tell them what is wrong with such an initiative. If things are not broken that, but if he's reprimanded, it leads to certain sort of things. And if he's not countered or if he's not actually given any suggestion out, it also may lead to some sort of other behavior. So it is the kind of parenting that is striking the balance between being stern and giving love, giving encouragement. Now, these sort of things will make a difference. And if he does not receive love or encouragement for the things he does, even if he's a good child and does something good, then that may also lead to guilt in their actions. So the actually human being is a whole set of actions and reactions, how he behaves in the environment. Erickson talks about this action or fitting between the individual and the environment that actually is in the lifespan of an individual. And he says that from the age of 3 to 6, that is early childhood, this sort of initiative versus guilt may stage is seen. Now the stage 4 is from in the school stage, that is from middle childhood, that is 6 to 12 years. Now here we have got the stage known as industry versus inferiority. If an individual does something and he's industrious, he's appreciated for it, he is commended, then he tries to involve in the same sort of behavior. If he is made inferior, now he will also try to develop less self. He does not have then self-confidence, and he also will try to go away from such work. So an individual may feel appreciated or ridiculed, or he may feel his work industry is appreciated and therefore he involves in the same sort of behavior and therefore masters a skill or educational task. Whereas if he feels inferior, the child may go away from such a task. Now here actually this is a process of learning, and this develops a sort of pride and confidence in an individual, whereas he also will have the intelligence to complete a task. The question child asks at this stage is, am I a worthy person? And he also tries to develop peer relationships, that is friendship with other persons, trains himself to team play. He tries to self-evaluate his own works, and also he tries to build his skills. Now, if there is a supportive environment, all this happen. But if there is an unsupportive environment, the child loses the capacity to learn. He becomes disinterested and does not master the skill, which may make him feel inferior to others. And again, he may, because he's not getting involved in such a task, there is a possibility that there will be a sense of negativity and inadequacy. And again, this is a whole cycle. And therefore, again, he may not get involved in such activities, which may make him an inadequate individual. So he may feel inferior and therefore not involved in the activities. And again, this may make him feel again inferior, and again he does not involve in the activities. So this is a sort of vicious circle. So in a person, if he is appreciated, he tries to involve in the same sort of things. Also, an individual needs to be corrected here gradually, and the sort of environment he gets, the encouragement he gets also makes a difference here. Now, the stage 5 is from adolescence to 12 to 18 years. We know there are a lot of changes occurring here. But then the most thing here is seen is a person tries to establish his identity. But at the same time, the society prescribes, asks him to do these things and not those things. And therefore, there's a sort of role confusion. That is, what things can be appropriately done by him and what not. So here the adolescent is dealing with biological and the physiological changes inside him or her, and also trying to make adjustments to the external world. He is dealing with his physical body as well as trying to establish a sort of what you call balance with the external world. Now the answer the individual is trying to find is, who am I? What sort of person am I? To what sex do I belong? To what religion I belong? To what caste or what concerns? What community? What cultural background I belong? So he tries to adjust to the demands of the social world. He also tries to understand himself in the terms of what he likes or what he dislikes, what are his hopes, values, wishes, dreams, and what he wants to achieve in life, his goals, and is engaged in the continuous process of self-awareness and self-development and reflection, that is thinking. This is very important because this sort of thoughts help an individual to transit into the or get changed into the, go into the individual adulthood. Now, this process also involves forming peer relationships. Here, the individual tries to develop relations with the persons or with the friends of his own age. He also will try to form an identity, and he also tries to deal with certain dilemmas in the sense, what are the different issues he faces, how to deal with dilemmas. Also, he will also find to understand the different value systems and maintain fidelity. Fidelity is trying to maintain a sort of what we call trying to maintain something or trying to stand by something in spite of all the other circumstances. If he tries to stand by someone or somebody or something, that is known as fidelity. Now, this is the loyalty. This is gained by this stage. And here, role confusion is seen. That is, what am I supposed to do versus identity crisis. Identity crisis in the sense, am I an individual? Am I sexually male or female? Or am I supposed to do these things? Or what is my identity? What are my values? What is my morality? That is the identity versus role confusion. What am I supposed to do? What are my criteria? What should I do according to my age? Now, one is trying to actually gain a proper perspective of oneself. And sometimes, if a person is not helped through his peers, others or relatives or friends or what you call adults or other persons, it may also lead to the possibility of developing a negative personality. The stage 6 is early adulthood, that is from 16 to 40 years. Now, this is a stage where the adolescent has gradually matured, and here we find he involves his more number of persons or peers he's interacting has become less. Is involved in more satisfying interrelationships or relationships with other persons. And here he wants meaningful and lasting relationships. That's why he gets engaged or married, or he forms satisfying sexual relationships, and he seeks out for companionship, love, and care. Now, the persons who are able to understand themselves completely, explore their sexuality, understand themselves individually, and they can also try to form loving relationships with other individuals. They also have these feelings of intimacy with the other peoples. Therefore, they also have the virtue of love. The fundamental question that the person here asks is, can I completely love somebody? Now here, what are the developmental tasks involved in this stage where intimacy versus isolation is seen? The developmental tasks are having relationships, love relationships, marriage, childbearing, and gainful employment. Now, sometimes if the individuals are not able to form successful relationships with other individuals because of their individual lapses, or who they are not able to form proper relationships with other, they may face isolation. Isolation means it is emotional suffering because of troubled relationships. Because they did not find successful relationships, they may actually have some emotional problems and emotional suffering, and this will lead to isolation, that is trying to stay away from such sort of relationships. But then ideally people should try to form successful relationships with the people with them, because it contributes to the individual health. Now, stage 7 is middle adulthood to 40 to 65 years. Here we find generativity versus stagnation. That is, after the family raising, the raising family, we raising children, striking balance with the environment, and trying to fulfill one's social and moral values, the individual now also wants to contribute something to the society. And this is the generativity, that is trying to develop something, that is trying to actually being productive. The individual asks at this stage, can I produce something of value to the society? What can I do with my life? What contribution I can make to the society? Now, what is this generativity? This is the psychosocial strength which actually translates into being productive or doing something for the society. This virtue of care, or the ability to care of someone else, or trying to commit to others, is gained in this stage. Now, developmental tasks involving this person at this stage, that is from 40 to 65 years, are parenting, trying to balance work and life, career advancement, trying to still develop their hobbies, etc. So sometimes the midlife crisis is seen by people who are not able to experience this sense of achievement. They feel themselves stagnated. Therefore, they feel despair. Stagnation is seen. Sometimes, if they are not generative enough, you find them stagnating at such a stage, that they're not involved in any social activities or any other activities. They're not also involved in being productive or trying to do something good in their either their family also or outside. And this may lead to a sort of stagnation where the individual is not contributing in any way. The stage 8, from late adulthood, that is, say, 65 years on to death, we find ego integrity versus despair. Ego integrity is being happy with oneself, trying to do something even at that age, trying to review their lives and perceiving their journey as a whole, and trying to make sense of life. So how well one experiences, see, life is full of experiences, how individuals integrate their life experiences till that stage and taking their journey as a whole, what they try to make themselves of and what they interpret their life, that is how their retirement life begins. Now, if a person experiences ego integrity, he or she will feel content, fulfilled with self and others, and he understands the values of wisdom, learning, and being detached but being concerned with others people's lives, being happy, and even being courageous even in the face of the death. But this sort of integration of all their life's experiences, it becomes meaningful experience for them, and they make something meaningful out of their life. Whereas the developmental tasks are involved at this stage are rearing one's children, raising grandchildren, taking up new roles to contribute to society, and pursuing hobbies, and trying to have religious sort of activities, developing a perspective towards death, understanding that death is a surety and they have to face death, but at the same time being ready for it, and trying to be happy about the life they have had then till then. These sort of feelings are seen. Whereas despair, we have talked about the ego integrity of the persons, but despair is seen in persons who have not achieved so far, and they may feel a sense of regret because they have not achieved certain stages they were in their life. They feel they become preoccupied with the past. They're thinking, I should not have done this way. My parents should not have behaved in this way. I should have had a successful relationships. My wife should not have been in such a person. I should not have fought with her. These sort of despair feelings are also seen at the stage. So how an individual masters at different stages through the help of others or forming social relationships or trying to make sense of things, and how actually he understands and integrates, or what he makes of his senses, what of his experiences till then, and what he actually does, that also helps in having ego integrity, that is in essence of his whole life. Whereas if a person is not so successful or he's unhappy because he has not mastered or able to grasp the essence of certain developmental stages, certain stages, that may lead to despair of an individual. Now, Erik Erikson is actually trying to understand the development of an individual in different stages so that he's able to make sense of the life. Now, this is accepted in many and applicable in many areas, especially child growth, child rearing, child, how to actually help the children grow, and marriage and vocational counseling, vocational job counseling, marriage counseling, etc. Now, McAdams talks about the personality development of Erikson. According to McAdams, Erikson talks about the personality development of the individual. Now, this is very comprehensive lifespan theory. It takes the biological aspect, the age aspect is given, the social aspects are given, that is the relationships with others, as well as the psychological stages of development. That is the happiness or being confident, being guiltless or having guilt. All the psychological aspects are also given important. He also talks about the mutuality between the environment and the individual. He talks about the contribution of the others in our lives on our own development. But the problem is, this theory was criticized for lack of consideration for individual difference, because sometimes all individuals may not pass through all these stages in that particular manner, or sometimes individuals may not clearly have all these stages of development, and there are individual differences. Individuals differ in their stages of development. And he also has given much importance to childhood stages and less importance to adulthood stages. Now, the last three stages are felt to have significant age gap. Now, also, how development occurs and what are the causes of development were not discussed in the theory, feel the critics. Now, therefore, the Erik Erikson's theory tries to actually help the individual, how actually the individuals develop according to the social development of the individual, the psychological development of the individual also occurs. How a person interacts with the society also has a bearing on his psychological development. So the interaction between the individual and the society is a matter of concern. Society actually helps the individual to be more autonomous or also more creative or more generative, also more ego integrity, have more ego integrity. So it is the relationships and the success or the failure of how actually one deals with these stages that helps the individual to be happy or unhappy. Therefore, Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory, even with the small failings or small problems it has, issues it has, is still a successful in developing the developmental stages in relationship with the environment. We'll be dealing now with Piaget's cognitive development theories. I request you, they may look a bit confusing, but one, the Freud theory tried to deal with the sexual aspects of development. The Erikson's theory tried to deal with the environment or well, how social relationships are formed with the environment by the individual. And now the third theory which we are dealing with is the Piaget's cognitive development. That is how the intellect grows, how the mind grows. That actually forms the individual development, is the backbone for the individual development. Now, cognitive ability, that is the ability for learning, is seen throughout the lifespan of an individual. We always try to learn something from a situation, from an experience, from a movie, from a site, or from somebody, or from our immediate circumstance, or from our experiences. We try to learn something. What is this learning? That is an experience which actually leaves some sort of knowledge in your brains on which you can reflect and try to make it a part of yourself. That is learning. Learning is gaining knowledge on of your immediate circumstances, of a thing or some aspect. These things constitute learning. Now, this cognition or trying to gain, what is, we talk about recognition. Recognition is again recognizing. Cognizing is trying to understand something. And here, we individuals try to understand, make sense of things happening around them throughout their life. Now, cognitive theory or the cognitive theory of development is also related to the psychological development of the individual. And here, he also talks about the different mental abilities of the individual. See, when a child is there, he has certain individual abilities, cognitive abilities, and when he grows, his cognitive abilities also grow. So until then, there was no research until Piaget has done these sort of research on individuals' ability to learn. This theory came somewhere in 1960s and Piaget 65, 64, and Piaget's work experience with children at Binet Institute. This helped him to gain an insight into differences in thinking of children as well as adults. He questioned why children make mistakes or errors in learning while answering questions when compared to the adults. He talks about the biological maturation or environmental interaction, both these together. Biological maturation, that is growing biologically according to the age, as well as the interaction, what the children form, both these lead to cognitive development. Now, Piaget is a constructivist. That is, he felt that we gain or build our knowledge in a meaningful way. Whatever experience we face, we try to give them meaningful interpretation, and then we try to make sense of our experiences, and therefore we also try to adapt to our new circumstances. This sort of learning and adaptation leads to cognitive development. Now, according to Piaget's cognitive development, he talks about certain words, that is terms, schemas he talks. See, schemas are concepts we form or our mental representation of the world. Our brain tries to always organize, make meaning of things, fit them into certain patterns, and then try to remember them or try to locate them in our brain. So that is, we have to make meaning of the whatever meaning of the experiences. We try to make some meaning out of them. We try to give meaning to things. And also, the schema of a dog. Suppose if somebody asks, please define what is the schema for a dog. We talk about the four legs it has, the tail it has, and also barking sounds, etc. For a cow, it means having a tail again, having a huge body, able to give milk, and these sort of things come to the mind. So the schema is what are the related thoughts about a particular individual or thing. So individuals, we try to learn, have schemas. Whatever knowledge we have, we try to fit into schemas. And whenever there is new knowledge, we try to modify these schemas with new information we receive from the environment. And with the age, obviously, we receive more information. Therefore, more information means more complexity. And therefore, again, the schemas get enlarged. We try to add something or remove something from these schemas. Now, these are all very important in the cognitive development. Also, he talks about how we actually form these schemas. The individual maintains these schemas. Two complementary processes are there in this formation of schemas. And one is assimilation, the other is accommodation. Assimilation is, suppose you have had some new information in the environment. Now, this is exactly, you have the previous schema on that, or a meaningful understanding or interpretation of that process in your mind. And you try to add to it, and that becomes assimilation. Accommodation is when you gain new information which is different from what you have learned previously. You have learned earlier something, but again you have learned something which is different from it. You either you make the change in the existing schemas. For example, a child learns about an apple and therefore calls all the animals, all the round-shaped fruits, that is plums, peaches, also apples. Then assimilation is understanding that all round-shaped, red-shaped fruits are apples. Whereas accommodation is trying to understand and saying there are different names for different fruits. So now here, trying to actually fit in the schemas is assimilation. Trying to understand that there are new changes and new names for it is the accommodation. Now, equilibrium is okay. When we get the same schemas, we are happy. We are easy to understand for us. Whereas when you get new information or new things which are at variance or a difference in what you have learned the earlier schemas, then you will find somewhat discomfort or disequilibrium. That is why people are not ready to change their ideas when something new comes. They're happy with their old ideas. But accommodation process gradually helps the individual to either modify their old schema and gain the new knowledge. Now, Piaget also talks about the developmental stages of the individuals, which are seen across the lifespan of all individuals. He calls them as invariant stages because all are compulsorily seen in all the adults, and these four stages are seen in all the individual developmental stages, in the sense that the cognitive development is seen in all the individuals according to certain stages. That is, you cannot either skip or go back on these. Each stage has different abilities or cognitive skills. The first stage is known as the sensory motor stage, which is seen from 0 to 2 years. Here, the child tries to perceive its environment through its senses or motor organs or motor nerves, that is muscles, hands, or what we call legs, etc. It tries to actually monitor the environment. They experiment in different ways. They suck, grasp, root, and they also understand that the objects, if they are hidden, they do not exist in the world. That is why when you try to take away a ball from the child, he thinks that it is lost. Therefore, this is object permanence. If it is there, it is there. If it is not there, the object, it is lost. Now, they cannot think that it may be hidden. So thinking in terms of symbols occurs in this place. That is why the parents to show them different objects, different toys. The significance of toys also comes from here. That is, they give different types of toys so that the sensory motor activities can be involved. Now, there are 6 substages in this. One is simple reflex stage, that is from birth to 1 month, where they simply reflex. They push away something, they go away. The eyes move from thing to thing. And coordination is tried to be achieved on basic senses. The primary circular reactions are seen from 1 to 4 months, where repeated actions give them pleasure. That is, if they go on, thumb sucking is also seen at this stage, where the continuous activity gives them pleasure. That is why here we have the games or the toys which go on moving, or which can be moved, or it can be shown to them, or colorful things can be shown, etc. The secondary circular motions reactions are seen from 4 to 8 months. Here the infant moves beyond his world and tries to call other people, start establishing relationships with other people, by also gives predictable responses. If you ask them to repeat something, they repeat. And here the infant tries to seek the attention of others and tries to keep repeating it so that he will receive appreciation. The coordination of secondary circular reactions are, that is, hand-eye movement, trying to catch something, trying to move something. These things happen. That is, two things are tried to made into coordination. This is the circular motions are made into coordination. And here the schemas are multiple. One or two schemas are being combined. That too intentionally. Object permanence is seen at this stage, that is from 8 to 12 months. And if you take away an object, they know you have hidden it. The tertiary circular reactions are seen from 12 to 18 months, where the individual finds the interest to actually see or explore things around him and see what are their properties. And we try to understand there is a cause-effect relationship is established. If somebody takes away something, he thinks this is because of this, and he starts crying. He can roll something, squeeze or bite a toy, etc. This happens from 12 months to 18 months. That is 1 to 1.5 years. Now, there's an internalization of schemas from 1.5 years to 2 years. That is, here the infant tries to perceive the world through symbols and mental representations. They have the capacity to find the hidden object, that is, it can be formed at this stage. So all these stages, that is, from 0 to 2 years, you find different stages, that is simple reflex, primary circular reactions, secondary circular reactions, coordination of the secondary circular reactions, tertiary circular reactions, where you can find that they are able to explore objects and also use their motor abilities to a certain extent, and the cause and effect phenomena, that is, if you take away a ball, they know you have kept a ball at a particular place. And then you have the internalization of schemas, that is, schemas are getting formed. They are able to actually be sensing something. They are also able to perceive and form certain sort of mental schemas where they find certain patterns in the experiences happening around them. The second stage is pre-operational stage from 2 to 7 years. Language development is seen at this stage. Egocentrism is seen. They are able to perceive themselves, and they're also thinking about themselves and only, and not about other people's ideas or thinking. So they also try to be imaginative and be creative, and also they think all the non-living objects also have emotions, that is known as animism. These children talk to their teddies, try to feed them, and thinking that it is a living thing. And they may think that teddy bear is angry, or it may not speak to it, etc. Now, their reasoning is limited to certain basic principles, and they are able to have some rudimentary reasoning and intuition, but still their ability is somewhat limited, and they know what is good or bad. They're not able to actually view situations as good or bad. They begin at this stage, but still they are not able to grasp the underlying beliefs. So here, from the pre-operational stage, we find certain sort of language development, certain sort of egocentrism, and at the same time trying to make sense of the world, but they think in terms of their own, and here they are able to use certain imagination and creativity. But step 3 stage is from 7 to 12 years, known as concrete operational stage, where they are able to do certain things, understand certain qualities. They may know that a 1 liter of water, if poured into a tall glass or short glass, remains the same. And you are also able to understand the objects based on their size, the shape, characteristics, and also the scientific principles of objects. But still, they are not still able to understand or show what we call complete abstract thinking, but they're able to understand the concrete operations, and therefore what we actually make them learn at this stage is based on the shape, size, and they are able to understand. They do not know that animism doesn't exist. That is, the non-living objects do not have any emotions or feelings. So there's a gradual development. The stage 4 is a formal operational stage from 12 years to adulthood, where we see that the children are able to come into the aspect of adult thinking. Gradually, the children from 12 to 13 years are able to understand the rational, hypothetical, as well as the imaginative things and abstract things like happiness, sadness, and also they're able to make inferences and also deduce logic from situation. These sort of abilities start developing from 13 to 16 years, which continue throughout their adulthood. Now, they're also able to make sense of vague information known as abstract thinking. So they also gain emotional maturity and begin to indulge in the self-reflection process. They try to think things, and therefore the education we give at this stage involves about complex mathematics, science, logical thinking, rational thinking, experimentation. All these sort of things can be taught here, and they are well received. Now, this actually Piaget's theory helped us is educationally useful in the sense of what we teach at what stage is dependent on what abilities they have at that stage. The intellectual development of theory is developed by Piaget, but then he talks about different stages again, and it may be rigid, these stages. Not all stages, sometimes we see some latent childhood growth. That is immediately what childhood is seen, that is not immediately transferred to adulthood. And adulthood, adolescence is seen to cross certain stages, and all individuals do not behave in the same way. But then the role of culture is also there. Different cultures, they try to establish different role models for children, and therefore in different cultures, Piaget has not taken into consideration this fact, but different cultures, different individuals grow in a different manner. Sometimes some cultures are more individualistic, like Western cultures, whereas an Indian culture, they may try to be more grooming, more trying to be more supportive. So these sort of things also may have a bearing on how the individual's intellectual development occurs. The social interactions also make a difference. So the role of memory, attention, are also seen of how quickly an individual forms, or on how and quickly an individual develops from one stage to another. So these stages of development may also have slight variation. These are the criticism of Piaget's theory, but it is widely applicable to educational settings to monitor their intellectual development. With this, I'll conclude, and we'll go into the different aspects of what we call growth stages, as well as infancy, adulthood, and adolescence in the next class. Thank you.